And despite the protests of those around him, Howard Hughes did the scene, and the plane came down. And that was a first significant concussion for Howard Hughes.
Upon impact, his face and forehead smashed into the cockpit dashboard, causing trauma to the orbital frontal cortex, which sits over the eye sockets. This is an area of the brain that handles error detection in humans, when we think something's a little off and need to correct it. When this area is deprived of oxygen, a person's sense of error detection may be thrown off. They may begin checking and double-checking their actions to make sure they haven't made a mistake or to get something perfect. This happened to Howard Hughes, and it's one of the secrets to understanding what made him tick. Howard Hughes spent nearly 3 years completing Hell's Angels, reshooting many scenes and editing the film almost non-stop at all hours of night and day. To those around him, he was completely obsessed and compulsively driven to make a perfect film. Little did anyone realize that this was an early sign that something was amiss with the young millionaire.
He would go in the screening room, he would literally cut apart these films frame by frame, and he just didn't have the psychological makeup that would say to him, hey, this is making everybody's life miserable. It's making this production go way over budget. He didn't care. He just wanted to get it the way he wanted it to be.
Costing $4 million, Hell's Angels finally premiered on the 30th of January 1930. With Hughes hiding in the shadows of the theater.
Hell's Angels, the opening of this picture at Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, was the biggest premiere ever seen anywhere in the world before or since. 500,000 people are lining the street.
The film was a huge success. Viewers were awestruck by the flying sequences, the best ever filmed according to some critics. This reinforced Hughes' urge for perfection and propelled him to his next career goal in the field of aviation. Hughes loved flying. He was more comfortable in the cockpit of an aeroplane than anywhere else. There he seemed free of his earthly phobias, people and contamination. And as a pilot, he found perfection. In 1932, Hughes announced the formation of the Hughes Aircraft Company. Then, within months of opening its doors, he vanished. It was the first of many peculiar disappearing acts throughout his life. Without telling anyone, Hughes went to Fort Worth, Texas, and using an alias, took a job as a baggage handler for American Airlines. Within a few weeks, he was promoted to co-pilot. Hughes continued the charade until he was finally recognized. It was an unusual dalliance. Some think he did it to study the inner workings of an airline, and he would later buy one, TWA. But others think it was just another indulgence. Howard doing what he wanted to do, because he could. Once his cover was blown, Hughes returned to California, not to make movies in Hollywood, but to build airplanes in Culver City and fly them himself. His first effort was a sleek racer, the Hughes H-1 Silver Bullet. It was a revolutionary design with many innovations, including a seamless fuselage and retractable landing gear. The aeroplane was evidence of Hughes' engineering genius and his reckless desire to set new world speed records. In September 1935, while testing the Silver Bullet, Hughes made a forced landing in a field. After the crash, he held a quirky news conference to explain what happened, and he directed it himself with multiple takes.
Its forced landing here was caused by motor failure during being clocked. Wait a minute, let's shoot that over. It was during this run at a speed of 370 miles an hour at a height of approximately 20 feet from the ground that the motor quit. During this run at a speed of approximately 370 miles an hour and a height of about 20 feet above the ground, the motor failed.
During the entire newsreel, Hughes continually picks and plucks at himself, visible compulsive tics. It's another clue to his evolving mental condition. 8 years later, in 1943, Hughes was piloting a new flying boat, the Sikorsky S-43, when it crash-landed on Lake Mead in Arizona. Hughes suffered another serious head injury in the wreck, and one of the crew died.
What's important about the crash is it was going to emotionally resonate with him. The fact that somebody died, it was during a time when Hughes was starting to have some mental issues. He doesn't know what it is. He thinks he's going crazy.
More and more, Hughes was exhibiting odd patterns of behavior. Compulsive washing to avoid germs, which he did since childhood. Checking and rechecking his work and his instructions to others. Always seeking symmetry and constantly trying to make things perfect. Few recognized or understood the symptoms then. But today, years after his death, this behavior points to a revealing diagnosis: obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD.
Hughes is pretty much an encyclopedia of symptoms of obsessive-compulsive disorder. There's hardly a symptom you can mention that he didn't have.
But OCD was not commonly known during Hughes' lifetime, so it went completely undiagnosed and untreated. As he grew older, his symptoms became more extreme and his behavior more bizarre.
It really all is consistent because the head injuries would tend to just make the OCD worse.
During the 1940s, friends and business associates wondered what was going on with Hughes. Some called him eccentric, but others thought there might be something really wrong. It was not a good time, personally or professionally, for whispers of insanity. His business empire was expanding rapidly, which tested his mental stability. The war years in particular brought Hughes aircraft a number of high-profile military contracts, and all were under intense scrutiny. This included the HK-1, the famous Spruce Goose, and a prototype for a new high-altitude reconnaissance plane called the XF-11. Both projects were over budget and overdue, mostly because of Hughes' incessant tinkering with the design and construction. And he insisted on being the test pilot for both. The XF-11 in particular was important to the company. Hughes wanted to show the government that it was a next-generation aircraft, and he intended to do it himself. The first test flight was on the 7th of July, 1946. The plane functioned perfectly for 45 minutes as Hughes soared above the Los Angeles basin, flying higher and further than scheduled. Suddenly, a propeller malfunction caused it to plummet. Hughes wrestled with the controls, hoping to land on a fairway of the Los Angeles Country Club.
He fought the plane and lost the battle and came down through a house in Beverly Hills near the golf course there. And it was a big, fiery crash. People thought Howard Hughes was going to die. And he wound up in the hospital fighting for his life.
And his doctor said to him, well, we don't want to lie to you. Your chances aren't good. And Howard Hughes said, well, I'm prepared. Hughes was ready to die after that plane crash. He went on to live 30 years.
30 years later, at his autopsy, doctors found shocking physical evidence of the accident. Hughes suffered severe head trauma and multiple burns.